Initiating Movieboys podcast. Still loading. Tempest and Ryan are on their way. Welcome. Please enjoy the show.
Welcome back to another episode of Movieboys. I am Ryan. It is actually Ryan. I haven't been replaced with someone else. I'm just feeling a little bit under the weather, but good enough to talk about some Rocky movies. I'm here with my co-host, Tempest.
How's it going? I have a normal voice.
Which is ideal, honestly. We could also maybe I could adjust your voice in post and make you sound like gravelier or something, so we can match our voices.
Oh, who's the fucking the trainer, the dude in the first Rocky movies?
Oh yeah, Mickey.
Yeah, you kind of sound like Mickey.
Oh, so this is on purpose. Yeah, I like that better. This is all part of the plan. I actually I got bronchitis and COVID at the same time and lost my voice just so that I could get in character and play Mickey in this episode.
A very deliberate, creative choice, and not an unfortunate circumstance of living in the United States healthcare system.
Yeah, it's it's method acting. It's method acting. We're just gonna call it method, which is a very necessary technique.
So yeah, everyone write a PO box address if you want to get sent dead animals and condoms.
Or honestly, okay, I could probably send you the sickness too. I'll spit in a vial and send it your way. I'm not actually going to do that. I mean, in Minecraft.
Okay. In Minecraft. But anyway, we're going to talk about Creed 3, and we're probably also going to talk about the Rocky movies in general, and also the first two Creed films. So if you haven't seen any of these, spoilers for basically like 10 different movies.
Yeah, I would
13?
say spoilers. Yeah, definitely spoilers for every single movie in the Rocky and the Creed franchise. So if you haven't watched them, you need to go watch all 6 Rocky movies. Okay?
Yes.
And then you're going to watch all 3 Creed movies, and then you come back. And it won't take you that long.
No,
it's a pretty quick excursion. Maybe skip Rocky. Maybe skip Rocky 5, and then, that'll save you some time.
And if you play them at double speed, you can get through it quicker.
Honestly, you could also maybe play them, get 6 TVs and play 6 at once and see if things match up at the same time. That could be fun.
You know what? Fucking probably right. There's the story beats for these movies are very similar, which
they are.
Not a bad thing, but I'm pretty sure if you played them all at the same time, a lot of the same things would happen at the same time. Anyway,
that would actually legitimately not to keep going on this tangent, but that would actually be really interesting to see if any of the final training montages, which are in all of these movies, synced up or anything. That would actually be kind of funny. I will not be doing that, but if someone wants to do that, they can get back to us and let us know how it goes. But I guess I wanted to talk first a little bit about the lead up to the Creed movies. And as being someone who is a big Rocky fan, I think that everyone was not looking forward to the first Creed movie. It's weird to look back and think about that because of how much of a hit and how well received these movies have been. But it was Rocky already had a horrible final movie in Rocky 5, and basically no one liked that. And it was another movie where Rocky trains a young and up and coming fighter, and then he came back and did Rocky Balboa, Rocky 6, and kind of redeemed himself a little bit. I think everyone kind of liked that movie, including myself, and it just felt like such a good fitting end to the Rocky franchise at the time, Rocky 6, and just the prospect of them doing a reboot. It was a time where a lot of reboots were coming out, and a lot of them were kind of a lot of them were kind of disappointing. They sort of just brought dredged an old franchise out and sort of dragged its corpse across the screen, and it just wasn't quite what it was. But I feel like this really pleasantly surprised me and a lot of people at the time, to the point where it even got Academy Award. The first one got Academy Award nominations. Stallone got a nomination for his performance. And I think that that's because, I don't know, I feel especially the first one is such a good passing of the torch movie. And it feels like it carries on the character of Rocky in a really, in a really faithful way, especially. And it feels like it connects, especially to those earlier, more humble Rocky movies, in a way that actually really worked for the character. And I thought that they continued the character's story in an interesting way, and it didn't just feel like a cash grab type of movie, at least for me.
Can I drop a hot take?
Yeah, let's do it.
I think the Creed movies are better than the Rocky movies.
You know what? I'm not. It's hard for me to admit that, but I think, and we'll get into the third one a little bit. I think especially after the third one, I might feel the same way. I think that overall, the Creed franchise is better. I will say. I think there are individual Rocky movies, especially the first and the sixth. For me, I would say that I think hold up on a dramatic level to the Creed movies. But I think there are more good, objectively good Creed movies than Rocky movies. I love Rocky 4, but it's for a different reason than I love the Creed movies. It's not like, I wouldn't say, even though that is one of my favorite Rocky movies, I place it in like a different category of Rocky movie, if that makes sense. It's more of like the sillier, campier ones. In like the more grounded ones, I think 1 and 6 are my favorites. But overall, I actually would agree with you. I think that, I don't know, there's just, I feel like they take that formula and there's so much about it that's just executed better. Even though essentially a lot of these are from the first to the third Creed movie have repeated story beats and things that you kind of know are coming based on the previous Rocky movies. Like you could take each one and go like, well, Creed 1 is kind of just like the first Rocky movie, even to the point where he loses at the end. Creed 2 is like kind of like Rocky 3, where like he loses the first fight against the major opponent, has to train and come back and wins. And I don't know, Creed 3, maybe it's a little bit more of an anomaly, but they're definitely not. I don't know. I feel like you don't love these movies for being like the most unique, surprising movies, but I feel like they're just effective, you know?
I think I really liked Creed 2 because I just rewatched it recently, but I think I may like Creed 3 the most out of all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that getting into Creed 2, what I like about Creed 2 is I feel like while the first one is like a great Rocky and Creed story, I feel like Ivan Drago, like making him like an actual dramatic character in the arc that they have with his son is really great, you know?
I am excited for, aren't they doing like a spin-off, the Drago movie? Like I'm actually interested in that because the guy who plays, what is it Victor Drago? That's the son's name, right?
Yeah.
He actually can act.
No, he's really good. And
yeah,
I'm just excited to see what they're going to do with that. I know that Stallone's not happy about it, but I don't really care at this point.
No,
but,
no, he's fine. Yeah.
It's going to, that's a whole other can of worms that we can get to, like maybe after talking about the movie. But I think there's enough there. My only thing about Creed 2 that I maybe don't like as much is I feel like Adonis's story is a little bit rehashed, but it's not bad at all. Like I really love Creed 2, but I feel like, I don't know. I guess he has this whole, like, he kind of goes against Rocky and insults him mid-movie in a way that it just wanting to do the fight and Rocky not wanting to do the fight. And it feels a little bit like a rehash of the first movie and like Rocky not wanting to train him and wanting to train him. And it's, I don't know, to me, that was not as dramatically interesting as the stuff with, Drago and his son. Like, I think that I honestly almost wish the movie kind of focused more on Drago, if anything, and like kind of, I don't know, like maybe tone down that stuff with Adonis because it felt like a little bit, like emotionally, I felt like it was retreading a little bit. And that's something I love about Creed 3 is I feel like it kind of enters new territory for Adonis in a lot of ways.
I really appreciated that. So I see the first one as like, the line at the end of the movie where he's like, I need to know that I'm not a mistake, which I think kind of sums up that first movie because, we find out that he's the illegitimate child of Apollo Creed, which is, I actually did the math because I was curious of like, okay, when the movie came out, like how old would he be like when this movie came out? And it actually works up for the timeline. So I don't know if you ever did that, but like, yeah, it like just barely. So like if we assume that Apollo Creed like impregnated someone like right before he died in the fight with Ivan Drago, it works up with the timeline of when Creed came out, because it came out like 2015 or something. Anyway, so I really see the first movie as like him finding his own way, kind of being like resentful of his father because like he never got to meet this person, but then also he finds out there is like a lot of baggage and shame about you were like an accident, basically, like you weren't planned as a child, which I can give you like a lot of trauma. So I think that was really cool how he works through that, and like that's kind of the whole point of the first movie. And then the second movie I really see as like him kind of finally like forgiving and embracing his father. But then the third one is kind of like, let's move past like Apollo and like let's move past like this source material and actually focus on Adonis and like his story and his character exclusively, which I thought was the best direction they could take this franchise going forward, is to stop like, you know what I mean? Like there's only so much you can like rehash the past for.
Yeah, I agree. And I really like that too. And what going back to talking about like maybe the first Creed movie a little bit, I really like that they made, I don't know, I feel like Adonis is very, very different from Rocky. Like Rocky, like all he knew was fighting. And he I don't really know if he was capable of doing anything else. But I like that in the first Creed movie, they kind of established like, no, he actually has like a good office job. He's a smart guy. There's just something inside him that he feels like he needs to go back and do this. Like it's not that he even, I don't know, it's not that he doesn't, it's not all he could do. I think it actually is a nice, like it makes it an interesting contrast between him as a character with Rocky. I like that they didn't just make him like a Rocky clone. And I totally agree that I think the best, I agree. I think they went in the best direction they could. And I think part of it was because Stallone didn't really want to be a part of it, but I think that actually worked out in their favor. I know not everyone agrees with that, but like he is at this point, like Michael B. Jordan, who also directed the third Creed movie, I feel like has really earned his own movie that doesn't really feel attached to Rocky in any way. And even from the first movie, they also has like established that Adonis had anger issues and problems growing up with law enforcement, and
Yeah, he was in foster care.
Yeah, he was in foster care, and they established that in the first movie. And I like that this third movie, which is, I'll quickly go into the synopsis. When Damien, a childhood friend and former boxing prodigy, resurfaces after serving time in prison, he's eager to prove that he deserves his shot in the ring to settle the score and this previous friendship, like really close friendship that he had with Adonis. Adonis must put his future on the line. Adonis must put his future on the line to battle Damien, a fighter who essentially has nothing to lose. And I don't know, I thought it was really smart because they laid the groundwork for this in the first movie, like with the opening scene showing
for
that
sure.
he had that trouble with the law, and to kind of like follow up on that with this movie, and especially to create such a, like, I don't know, I found Damien to be such an interesting character to the point where it was like, damn, I could even watch a movie about this guy. And I think that makes this one of the most unique movies in the franchise, because usually you don't care about or find the villain as interesting as you do in this movie. You know what I mean?
I don't even, I get that he's playing like the villain kind of role, like the antagonist. I don't even really feel like he's like a villain in the sense, like a true sense of a villain. He's kind of more just like another protagonist story we're following.
Yeah, and something that points to that even more is that they even like kind of, I think it's like one of the only references to Rocky in the movie. Like he basically is talking to Adonis and he's saying like give me, he more or less says like, this is like my Rocky moment. Like you should, like Apollo gave Rocky a chance, so you should give me a chance, like my dad gave Rocky a chance, like your dad gave Rocky a chance. And I really, really liked that they kind of drew that comparison and made him the underdog in the movie, because it really, especially in that first fight that Damien is in and everyone's booing him and like no one believes in him, it is really entertaining to watch him kind of show up, this first fighter in the movie. And I think that I think that was a really, really smart move. And it's just crazy that it's kind of interesting because I feel like Apollo was somewhat sympathetic in the second Rocky movie, but they really have never, fleshed out an opponent. I agree, he's not really a villain, but like the main opponent for the protagonists. They've never really fleshed them out like they do here. And I really think that even in Creed 2, where you do kind of start to appreciate Victor Drago a little bit more, he's not as fleshed out as Damien is here, which I just feel like was such a great move.
I just love this movie. It was good. Everyone should watch it if you haven't. The only thing, okay, I don't know if you noticed this or if you didn't like this. This was Michael B. Jordan's first film that he directed. I noticed that there was a lot of like really, really tight close-up shots on people's faces when they were talking. And I feel like that kind of got overused just a smidge.
Yeah, he was definitely, I definitely noticed that he did that a little bit more than previous Rocky movies. I think that this probably has, and I think all of the Creed movies have kind of like visually like separated themselves from the Rocky movies a little bit. Like Creed 1 had a lot of really, which is directed by Ryan Coogler, had like the director of Black Panther, who there were a lot of like really, I felt like cinematic shots in the ring, especially the entire second fight is essentially like one take and the camera's kind of spinning around them. And I like that it had that, like that it felt, and that kind of just made it feel more like a fight that you were watching on TV. And I appreciated that. And I think that this movie almost feels more what I did like, although, yeah, I actually would agree. I think there were maybe like too many close-ups. He really did focus on that. I did like Michael B. Jordan has talked about how a lot of the fights in this movie were very like anime inspired. And I really liked a lot of the things that he did with the final fight. And I know it's actually been a little bit divisive amongst some fans, but it's when you see it, if you haven't seen it yet, you'll know what we're talking about. But it's just very stylized. Like there's moments where all of the crowd essentially fade away and it's just them. Both
I love
in the
that
ring together, and I loved that. And I thought that was he brought such a unique visual flair to Rocky, and I think it was needed. You know, like I think that you have to change things up in a series like this, especially when there's really only so many things you can do within the framework of a boxing movie. So you have to find ways to make it stand out and make it a little bit more unique. And I love that Michael B. Jordan really loves anime and has talked about that a lot. And I really appreciate that he tried to bring that flair and that style. Yeah. Even like him like punching the tree, which is like not something that you would do in training for boxing, but it works. It feels very like, it's very over the top. Like, yeah, even the level of sparring that he was doing before the fight and the training montage, I don't think they've ever shown like brutal sparring like that before like a match, which is not something that you would do. But it's still like, and I've seen some people complain about that, and it's like, don't you complain about like realism to me if you like the Rocky movies? Like, there's so much like, and that's another thing that I, not to be like too tangential, but I like that the Creed movies overall, in comparison to the Rocky movies, it's not just like the boxers like throwing wild like haymaker like dramatic punches, and it does feel more like a boxing match. Like they throw jabs, and it is a little bit more technical, and I like that.
Mm-hmm. You know what I noticed, which I never really put two and two together before? When they're filming the fight scenes, like obviously like in this universe, like the fights are being filmed for like, you know, like prize fights, like pay-per-view fights. And they have camera guys in all the corners of the boxing ring. And I was like, oh, that's so fucking smart, because you can actually get real shots for the movie, but you're playing it off as like it's these guys that are just filming the boxing match for like TV. I never like I know this isn't like groundbreaking analysis here, but I just noticed that and I was like, oh my god, that's so fucking smart.
Yeah, no, it's such a good way to do it. And it's kind of surprising that I think the very first Rocky series movie to kind of utilize that like realistic pay-per-view style was Rocky 6, and they kind of make it look like an HBO pay-per-view fight. And I feel like it's such a smart way to do it. Like, and I don't know, I like that this movie does kind of get away from that a little bit, but it doesn't, it's still, I don't know, I feel like it really works for dramatic effect to have like the crowd disappear and have it just be both of them, because ultimately like the jail bar is like coming down, and like ultimately these fights, like this fight is very, very personal. And, it just makes it that much more effective. I feel like, because I really do think boxing is the most cinematic sport there is. I don't think there is another sport where it's one-on-one. You have all of the, the hopes and dreams of each person, and like the feelings that each person has toward each other, and they literally punch it out. Like there's not a more cinematic sport than that. And I feel like that's why like this series works so well, and why it works well, even though like, yeah, I mean, this movie isn't like reinventing the wheel in any way, but that doesn't make it any less like powerful and like effective for what it's doing. You know what I mean?
Oh, we haven't really talked at all about Bianca and his daughter Amara at all, but I thought it was interesting, like what they were kind of setting up with the daughter, and if they make another film, I'm assuming it's probably going to be about her when she's older.
I could see that. I wonder if they're going to do that right away, or if they'll give Creed like another movie first, but because I feel like they would have to age them up quite a bit to let her start fighting. But I think that would be a really, really interesting angle for the future. I think like setting that up and having a fighter who is deaf would be very, very interesting, and her having to kind of deal with that. Like I think that could be a really interesting sequel, and they could set up something similar where it's Adonis training his daughter. I think that could be like a really, really, it's a really interesting setup, and I'm wondering how that's going to pay off later.
I can just picture the fucking quartering and all the stupid right-wing YouTubers who are like, the main character's a black woman and she's deaf. And it's like, this has been established for many, like, it was like she was born in Creed 2, and they did the hearing test, and they found out that she was deaf. And also the mom has like a hearing loss issue. So this isn't like, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't something that just came out of nowhere. It's part of the story, and it's part of their character arcs. And I don't think this exists in any other movie. Can you think of any other movies where there's a black female character who's deaf?
None. I mean, not a single one.
Probably. I mean, I'm assuming there must be, but like not in a movie this big.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Like, this movie is massive. It had one of the best first weekends of any sports movie of all time. I think the best, if I'm remembering right, which is crazy. Like, and especially, I'm just very happy that Michael B. Jordan was able to do that without Sylvester Stallone. Which there were a couple. Like, okay, I think I told you this earlier, but there were a couple scenes that I would have liked to see Rocky in. I think one scene specifically that was kind of weird to not see him in, and that's when Adonis Creed's mother passes away. And it was, I feel like that would have kind of made sense since Rocky was close to her to be there. But I don't know, like watching Creed 2 again and thinking about it as like his last movie, his last line, Rocky's last line to Adonis in the movie is, "It's your time now." And he kind of leaves him in the ring to celebrate. And I feel like it wasn't written that way to be like a final line to him, but it could work as that. So it doesn't necessarily bother me, although it was a little, I did think about it. Like, it wasn't like something that was completely out of my mind, even though for most of the movie, I wasn't thinking about him at all. And it's just, it really works as Michael B. Jordan's vehicle and his own story. And it is nice to see him take it over. But I do wonder if they do work it out, if he'll be in like one future movie or something. But I think that if he doesn't show up again, I think it'll be totally fine that the last that we see of him is him going to spend time with his family, and that's it. Like, I think that's a nice ending for him, and they don't need to revisit it. But if they do, I know that Michael B. Jordan has said that he does want him in a future movie if possible, and he would like to like close that story out. But I don't know. I really, it's like a take it or leave it thing for me. I think this movie worked so well without him that I don't really care ultimately. But if they do bring him back, and if they find a good way to bring him back, do it. But I don't need him.
He doesn't need to be there.
That's crazy to me. Like, if you would have told me that, if you would have told like 15-year-old, 16-year-old Ryan watching Rocky 6, like that one day he would not be in a Rocky movie and it would be probably one of the best ones, I would be really surprised. And I really do think this is one of the best ones.
I don't think he would need to be brought back if he were to come back as like a actual character who we see throughout the entire movie. But I'd be fine if he did like a, Top Gun Maverick Val Kilmer cameo kind of style. Like he's in the story and it makes sense, but he's not like a focal point of the story. Like I'd be fine with that. I don't think he needs to come back as a main character. I think if they want to continue forward with the franchise, they need to branch out and
Yeah, and I think that all it would need to be for me and how I would do it is in a future movie, because like something that's recurring throughout all the Rocky movies is Rocky going to like the grave site of his past, his wife who passed, or Adrian, or someone who is close to him who passed, like Apollo. And I think that all you'd have to do is have Adonis, talking to his mother at the grave site, and maybe he shows up to talk to him. I'm assuming she would get buried in Philly. Maybe she wouldn't, but like you could have that happen at the same funeral and have him just give him a little bit of a talk about grief or something. Like I think that could be really nice. That could be a really nice like final moment between them, and then you can leave it at that. Like you don't need to have like the cancer come back or have him die. Like I don't think you need to rehash that storyline. I think that it would be okay
oh
to just
god,
have one nice small little if Stallone does work it out with the producer of these movies who he does not get along with. I think that would be an okay way to do it.
I think it would make sense too if we don't see Rocky die, because he is kind of such like a legendary mythical kind of figure that like seeing him die, I don't know. I feel like it might just be too sad, but not in a good way.
I'm not saying that it wouldn't, like 100% wouldn't work. I don't know. Like it really depends on how the execution, like no pun intended, would be. But I don't know. I don't think we need to see it. I agree, but I'm not saying it couldn't be done well. But I don't. Again, I don't know if we need it. But one other thing that I wanted to talk about with this movie that I liked is, and I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, is I feel like while the second movie, it does have a little bit of growing for Adonis to do and being able to like kind of step out of his father's shadow, like for once and for all sort of thing. But I like that in this movie, it's kind of about him having to open up to his wife and his family and be able to like talk about his problems. It was like, that's something that has never been really present in any of these movies.
Yeah.
And it's always something that the men in these movies do is they bottle it up. And it's just nice that he's able to open up to her and just be genuine and be honest about his past, even though it's hard. And I like that his one of his main arcs in this movie is being able to connect with his wife on a deeper level and letting that kind of guide him, I guess,
And it doesn't feel like shoehorned in. It feels very natural for the progression through the progression of all the movies. Like it feels appropriate, and yeah, I do like that they showed this vulnerability, especially with the daughter too. Oh, one thing I wish they did, because I feel like in the beginning, like with Damien's character, they were trying to play him off as like very, very like kind of more like endearing. I wish there was a scene before he went to have dinner with the family where Adonis like takes him aside and be like, "Hey, my daughter is deaf. This is how you say hello in sign language." And like if there was like a scene where like they showed him like practicing to like try to get it right or something, you know what I mean? Like I feel like that would have done a lot to show that like he cares about Donnie and like his kid, like he cares and he wants to do this right. And I feel like that would have been a better moment than like him just not saying anything, and then he meets his daughter and it's like, "Oh yeah, my daughter's deaf, by the way." Not that like that's wrong. I just think it would have been like, I don't know. I thought it would have been like better at a better character building moment if like they showed like him like teaching him how to say this and then like him practicing to show that like, do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. That would have been a little bit, because I mean a big part of the first half of this movie is them sort of Damien and Adonis reconnecting.
Yes,
and
yes.
I think I agree. Like you get so many nice moments with Adonis like connecting with his daughter, and like, Damien showing that he's willing to do that would actually be a really sweet moment that would maybe connect them a little, help to connect them a little bit more. I agree. I actually like that idea.
I guess I don't know. I guess I don't know anyone who has a deaf child, so maybe I'm completely off base. But I feel like if I had a child who was deaf and like they were and I was introducing them to someone who was really important to me, I would make a point to be like, if you could like say like, I don't know, like teach them how to like say hello or like my name is blah, blah, just something. Like I feel like, especially because this is a younger child too. This wasn't like a teenager or like.
And no, I totally agree. Like you would think that he would have been a little bit more delicate about that, I guess. And yeah, I do think it would be interesting if they decide to continue that with a future sequel. I just think that I do wonder if they'll do it right away, because I feel like they will want to give like Adonis another movie. Like obviously she's going to be a part of the next movie, but I don't know. I could see it being like maybe 2 movies from now. Because it just seems like, I don't know what they would do for a second, another sequel. But, I wondered the same thing about this one. And I am glad that, I think you touched on this earlier, that this movie is a whole new character. It isn't tied to like, I liked that the second one was tied to the past and Ivan Drago, and the first one was tied to the past. But it is nice to have this movie, again, just be all new, like essentially an all new character who isn't like Clubber Lang, like Mr. T's son from the third Rocky movie or something, which a lot of people were theorizing, and it was just like, dude,
oh my god,
stop it! Just that you have Marvel brain, you have like Star Wars brain right now. Like, please, like it doesn't all need to be connected to a character in the past. It just doesn't. Like I liked that we kind of got like a Rocky IV sequel with Creed 2, but it doesn't always need to be like that. We don't need to like have fucking. I know you haven't seen this Rocky V, but we don't need like Tommy Gunn's kid from Rocky V to come back. Like it doesn't need to all be connected like that. That just becomes kind of like trite at some point. Like you have to move on. And I think that it was very natural, like creating this character, especially considering they established that he had those issues like as a kid in the first movie. I think it worked very well.
I do think it would be interesting if like not that I want this to happen, but just like a joke universe where like every one of Rocky's former opponents, they all have kids, and then Adonis has to box
in like a gauntlet. Honestly, I kind of would want to see that. That sounds insane. They all team up like a league of supervillains.
Yes, and they ship him off to like an island, and he has to box all of them to get off the island.
And then at the very end, Rocky has to come out of retirement at like 70 to fight to help him, like in like a tag team match or something.
Oh my god! Now I want to see this. Goddamn.
Honestly, it deserves to be made, at least in some capacity. I feel like we deserve to see it. It does honestly sound like an anime.
I will draw this out in like stick figures and put it together like a flip book.
Someone needs to make it. Someone needs to do it. I'm just imagining like, oh my god. So it would be Clubber Lang's son, like who's Mr. T. It would be Dolph Lundgren's son, Victor. Obviously Adonis is the one. Like, oh my god, it would just be. It would be very funny. Like even but like you could even get like the minor Rocky villains to join in. Like you could have Hulk Hogan's son like fight him or something. Hulk Hogan's actually in the third
Mickey's
movie.
son. Like I don't even think it has to be like sons of the boxers. It could just be like anyone's son.
That's even better. That's even better. Arnold Schwarzenegger's son, Patrick Schwarzenegger, can just be in it.
Yeah, just anyone who'd be like, my father, he sold Rocky the Turtles. Like I don't know. I know.
Oh shit! There we go. We don't know the origin of the guy who sold Rocky the Turtles. Maybe that'll be.
I thought didn't he?
Maybe
get
that'll
the
be the next one
at the pet store where Adrian works. But maybe he got them at a different pet store. I don't know.
Maybe there was like a clerk who delivered those turtles to the store. Like where did they? It was some guy. They came from this like amazing martial artist in Japan or something. I don't know. That sounds honestly like it would be. Do you watch Cobra Kai?
I haven't watched it, but I know what it's about.
That is that show. is what we just described. It is like, do you remember this obscure? And it's honestly like some people I feel like it a little too much, but it is like, I don't know if I'm gonna get hate for this, but
I
it's
love
like
that though.
I actually love the show, but it is like it is pretty awful. It is like very corny. Like you have like the most minor characters coming back from like the third and fourth movies who no one has heard of before, who no one remembers. And it's like they come back and their son is willing to fight. It's just ridiculous. But it is fun, but it's like it is very stupid. And that's why that show is so it's so charming in my opinion, but it is like really fucking dumb. Like I don't understand the people that actually, I don't know. I have a weird relationship with that show.
I don't really have any other thoughts about the wait, no, I do have one more thing. So do you remember when we reviewed the remaster of Rocky 4 and I asked you if you thought that movie was remastered for fans who hadn't seen the original Rocky movies and had just seen the Creed movies to go back and watch? I'm starting to think that is what it was remastered for now that I've rewatched all these movies.
I think so too, honestly. Like it really, and even listening to, I haven't watched the full documentary about it, but Stallone has like this whole documentary he did about the editing process for the new cut of Rocky 4. And I watched just some clips of it. And he does talk about like wanting to make the tone more serious. And he doesn't maybe directly say what we did, but I think that is what it is. I think it was to kind of bring it more in line with the Creed movies. And just like, I would say if you're looking at the Rocky movies as a whole, I think the first one and the second one kind of have the more grounded sort of Rocky tone that like feels faithful to it. And I think that the fifth Rocky movie kind of has that a little bit. Like they try, even though it's so bad. The sixth one has that grounded tone, and then the Creed movies try to have more of that like grounded tone. And I don't know. It makes sense that he wanted, again, like I'll reiterate what I did in that review. Like I get wanting to do that, but it's just impossible to do that with a movie as silly as Rocky 4, at least in my opinion. It's just already so wacky and so 80s that it's an interesting experiment, but it feels weird. And I would recommend like fans of the series check out the director's cut, just to show like how it is interesting from even like as an editor, it's interesting to watch and think about how like such subtle changes and like lingering on an actor's face for a little bit longer, or like showing a slightly different reaction shot can sort of change the tone of a scene. But like, it's still Rocky 4. Like there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
You know, like
there's only so much lipstick you can put on that pig.
Right. It's a very campy, silly movie. And it honestly kind of feels like it still felt like kind of jarring and like wrong to me to do that. It's like, just let it be a pig. Let it roll around in the slop. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is.
You can't go back home.
You can never go home. And so I am looking forward to see what, if Michael B. Jordan directs the next one. I'm looking forward to it. If they get a new director, I think that's cool too. But I don't know. I'm curious to see where this series goes next. And I mean, if Stallone will be a part of it. I'm also looking forward to if they do spinoffs with Drago. I think that'd be cool. I read somewhere that they wanted to do like a Rocky prequel series on TV, and that sounds horrible to me. I also saw that they were talking to Michael B. Jordan about like a Creed universe series, which honestly scares me anytime anyone says that, because it just
Creed universe. Is this what we were talking about with Fight Island?
Honestly, yeah, it seems like it. But it just seems like every studio wants each IP to be like this vast Marvel universe, and it's like if you have a good idea. Like, I think the Drago thing could be a good idea. If you have a good specific idea, do that and see what happens. But you don't need to just say, like, oh, we need to... It worries me when your first thought is, we need to expand this to be bigger before having specific ideas. Like, it just makes me think, like, you just want money. And I know ultimately at the end of the day, that's what studios exist to do. But, like, I hope that they can rein it in and it doesn't become, like, too unwieldy, I guess.
Yeah, as long as the story makes sense, I'm all for it, and they do a good job. But if it just starts turning into, like, we fight the guy who sold Rocky the Turtles, like, it's probably not No, the son of the man who sold Rocky the turtles.
Oh man, that would be. That, I'm just imagining that as the subtitle, like Creed 4, the son of the man who sold Rocky the turtles, and Rocky's back. The turtles die, and that's like a dramatic like third act thing that happens or something. I don't know.
Not the turtles.
That would actually maybe be too sad.
Oh my, no, like I don't want to watch turtles.
That's
die.
gonna bring Rocky out of retirement. He's gonna go full John Wick, and just
to save. Oh my god! And then we get like a whole spin-off series of like a John Wick style Rocky movie where he's avenging the people, or he's avenging his turtles.
I honestly kind of want to see that. They kill Adonis because Adonis is trying to rescue, or he's trying to protect the turtles, but he fails. Oh my god! And then the cancer comes back right in the third act too.
Oh
he has to fight like while doing chemo. He has to save, or he has to stop the guy while going through chemo. It's gonna one up the first Creed movie.
Okay, I think we need to end it. I don't know who's watching this entire thing and hasn't seen the movie, but I definitely recommend seeing the movie if you haven't. I thought it was really good. It's worth your time. I think it's worth paying to go see it in theaters.
Yeah, I absolutely think you should see this in a theater with a good audience. It was really fun. Like my audience clapped at the end and like during the fight and stuff. And I don't know, I find that those types of environments to be really fun. Like I think that like especially with sports movies, when people get into it, it's always enjoyable. And yeah, I don't know, I absolutely think you should see it on the big screen, especially if you're a fan. If you haven't gotten into this series yet and somehow you've listened to this long, like you got some homework to do.